Good morning and welcome to BizTech Conversations. I'm Brian Fernandez and with me today is Danny Lee. Danny is the chairman of PIKOM, the National Tech Association of Malaysia, representing, I think, Danny, about 1,000 companies.
1,000 companies and individuals, to
Welcome,
be exact. Yeah.
welcome to the show, Danny.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Danny, give us an overview of PIKOM and what it does.
PIKOM as an association has been around for 34 years. As we are talking today, as we are speaking to each other today. Since its inception, right, the whole idea of the existing of this association is to help the industry by working with our members to ensure that we work in line with the government's initiative, and with that, in terms of initiative, we will work with the members to support them to grow towards the direction that we felt the industry would be aligned with the growth of the economy. Now, as an association, I believe that for many years, we have been associated with this thing called PIKOM PC Fair.
No, absolutely, yeah. And especially in up to about the last 5 years, that's where you made all your money. Basically, the association was largely funded by PC Fair. Am I correct?
I wouldn't say last 5 years. I think probably we ceased the PC Fair operation back in 2012.
Okay.
Or 2013.
Okay.
And even prior to that, we are seeing dwindling in terms of support.
Okay.
From the retailers, especially at that point in time, a lot of retailers are also our members in order to participate in PC Fair. And we saw that portion of event that was our cash cow for many years, right?
Yes.
Is no longer contributing to its purpose and also mission. Let's not even talk about P&L. The reason was because at that point in time, there was an emergence of e-commerce. There were emerging e-commerce, and also at the same time, there were also competitive organization was also investing in setting up fairs nationwide as well.
Okay.
Right. So there were too many fairs running around. It created a very different buying pattern from the consumers.
Okay.
Now, so to those retailers is that now we have fairs by 3 different organizations, whether they are NGO or not. And which each of them setting up 3 fairs a year at the very least, or 2 fairs a year. There will be probably about 8 to 10 fairs they can look forward to. But also at the same time, it's also impacting their retail storefront sales, because that kind of trend has created a different consumer buying pattern. So the consumer now said, why don't I just wait for the fair? And because by right, during fairs, that's where they get all the attractive offers. Okay, and by doing so, the retailers will feel that on their normal day-to-day storefront operation, they are not seeing that kind of sales volume anymore. This has, in a way, and also retailers also have to commit to their vendors in terms of sales revenue during those fairs. And some of these commitments are not small; they're pretty large.
Yeah.
Pretty large volume commitment. To a certain extent, I believe certain retailers. When you commit a large volume, is not necessarily you're able to clear those volume within the 3 days, 3
Correct.
days of the fair period.
Yeah.
And some end up stuck with a month or even more than a month of stocks sitting in their retail outlet or in their warehouse per se. And when that happens and the normal sales operation at the retail storefront is not happening, so the stocks are normally slow moving after
any event. Yeah.
Correct. So that has a major financial impact to retailers. So basically, the whole dynamics of event sales versus including retail sales have changed with the emergence of e-commerce and online sales.
Which brings me to the MySale, where I think in 2019. You had something in the region of MYCYBERSALE. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I think you had something in the region of $770 million of turnover. So that's merchandise sales overall.
That's gross market value.
Yeah, gross market value. But so, what is your contribution to that in terms of how are you involved and how do you all benefit from that? And
basically, we started working with MDEC on MYCYBERSALE back in 2018. Right, where MDEC wanted PIKOM to manage it in total. And our whole idea of MYCYBERSALE is to engage with local merchants so that the local merchants, regardless of product segment, can come on this platform to promote their merchandise or their products using this platform or using this e-commerce initiative, which is why the word "my" stands for Malaysia, and CyberSale, which is much related to e-commerce. The name of it gave birth to the name of this. Now, importantly is that if you look at the e-commerce, there's a platform that's available in market today. Name a few like Lazada, Shopee, and so forth, right? If you look at the merchants registered and merchants available, I believe very strongly 80% of that merchants that are registered with them are actually overseas merchants. Okay?
I think that, that's interesting. A lot from China.
A lot from China. So basically, when you go into this platform to procure products, whatever products that may be for your own usage or for consumer usages, a lot of these merchants are actually taking advantage of this platform selling into our country.
Yes.
Right. So in other words, this platform may not necessarily promote local products, may not necessarily promote local merchants. The most unfortunate part is that when you see a local merchant on this platform, they are also selling products that is from overseas.
Of course, and a lot of them are dropshippers as well.
Correct, exactly. So the difference in MYCYBERSALE was to really promote local merchants, local products, if possible, and because we also scrutinize those merchants that came on board to sign with us.
Okay.
And in 2019, we managed to get above 1,000 merchants to sign up for this initiative. It was a month-long activity with the support of private organization. Unfortunately, we couldn't get any support from the government, so it's mainly support from the private organization. A few key organizations came in to sponsor this initiative, to work with us, to ensure that our drive towards building and developing local merchants are there, using MYCYBERSALE. Yeah.
Now, could you give us, so PIKOM has obviously moved again to a more holistic view of the tech industry.
Yeah.
Could you give us some insights into the current tech industry pre-COVID? Because obviously things have changed post-COVID. Pre-COVID, what was the landscape like in terms of your members, and give me some numbers?
Maybe it's just to explore or so-called expand further in your first question, is that how has PIKOM changed since the PIKOM PC Days Fair, PC Fair days. So what happened is that over the past 3 to 4 years, we have relooked at our strategies, because on a yearly basis, when the new team is on board, the new board members are on board, we will do an annual strategic meeting, and we have developed a few chapters where we feel that will help to drive our members in the industry to a next level in terms of their development, business growth, and whatever. And obviously, these activities are extremely important for them. We developed 5 chapters as of today, and these 5 chapters covers outsourcing, which is very important for the global business services and shared services. We have e-commerce chapter, where MYCYBERSALE currently resides in terms of the activity or event. Then we also have a cybersecurity chapter. This is an important topic because we set up this chapter about 2 years ago, knowing that cybersecurity is going to be a key point of discussion, a key point of implementation, both from technology provider standpoint and also end user standpoint, especially now post-COVID, where a lot of things are conducted online. Cybersecurity measures are definitely even more important to be put in place by users. Then we have our venture investment chapter. In short, we call it VIC. This is where we work with investors, VCs, to look at potentially invest or support startups and also scale up companies that are looking at investment to grow their organization or to get their organization into a successful level. So, and then there's one more chapter, which is the CIO chapter. This is also a very important chapter for us, because it consists of, as of today, about 130 chief information officers, CIO in short, that is representing large conglomerates, organization that has a size of more than 10 million ringgit in terms of yearly IT spending, right? So accumulatively, you get 130 times 10 million, that's quite a huge sum
Yes.
of market access that we're talking about, that we can provide to
And
technology
part of
providers.
doing that, and I think you hit the nail on the head, market access is
Yes.
one of the key reasons why you've basically set that chapter up.
Yeah.
For your members to have access, I think one of the key challenges with Malaysia is the fact that we are not buying local products or local products and services.
Yeah.
I mean, the big names, your SAP, Oracle, and all that are in every large corporation, but very good technology that's available locally is often not adopted. So I would take it that that's one of the key reasons why this chapter is highlighted with those 130 important buyers.
Correct. The 130 important buyers has been with us for 10 years. It was an idea mooted by previous chairman and supported by some key CIOs in the market space or from the end user standpoint. And even those days we worked very closely because some of these end users knows that PIKOM as an association can work with our members to provide the right solution for them. Let's not even talk about local products or foreign solutions. I think at that point of time, obviously, main solutions are actually coming from abroad. Those names that you mentioned, IBM, Oracle, HP, SAP, and stuff like that. But important is to have the link between providers and consumers, or in this case, and corporate end users, or even government end users, for instance. Because some GLCs are also part of this CIO group as well. Back to what you mentioned, right? Whether there is this local solution that's available, definitely there are, right? The thing today is that Malaysians are not, let's not even talk about us being inventors, we are not great innovators too, and especially from the end user end, a lot of them are followers, right? If anything, that they are comfortable.
Anything is at a Gartner quadrant, they will buy.
Yeah. So, but important is that this chapter, these days, what we are encouraging them to do is to really allow vendors and solution providers airtime. So what they do is that probably on a quarterly basis, they will so-called work with a vendor or solution provider to give the group, the CIO chapter group, a half-day session talk, presentations, provide product insights, knowledge sharing, so that these CIOs can have a broader view of what's the available solution that's out there in the market, be it foreign or be it local. So they are open now to all aspects of providers, regardless where the product is being produced. So I think that's a good thing moving forward. And important also is that last year we heavily embarked on an SME affiliated group that is under the care of the CIOs.
Okay.
So basically, the growth of this group is moving very strongly. I mean, in the short 12 months, we have got over 50 members. Basically, these are the IT head or IT leaders within a smaller organization that potentially can one day be the CIOs. And don't mind saying that the group of CIOs that we are working with, the 100 over CIOs, right, they are already reaching a certain level of seniority in their age. In fact, a lot of them are also planning their retirement soon. So you need a next level of people to come in and potentially take over a higher role in a larger company. So this is an opportunity for the CIOs to mentor, to guide, and also do a lot of sharing, so that there is this next wave of generation that can potentially take over key positions in the future. So basically, a lot of companies, solution providing companies are also looking at how to target the SMEs. Because sometimes the solution may not be able to scale to a level of large organizations.
And it's also a question of reference customers. They don't have enough reference.
Exactly.
The easiest, the lower lying fruit is to get enough references within the SME space, then get yourself eventually listed on Gartner quadrant, and then you can hit the big boys.
Yeah. But I believe the chapter today are very open to exploring new products, new solutions that's provided in market, especially solutions that has proven itself. Most of the time it's a word of mouth, basically from recommendation of one or two members. They say, hey, I've tried this product, I'm currently using that in my organization, it proved to be great, it solved my issues. Why don't we open and let them talk to all other CIOs in
that's a very good platform, actually. Right. I think peer review and peer review is the best kind of introduction from a sales process.
Yeah, correct. And we also conduct annual education visit for them. Okay. So basically, we work with vendors that will require attendance of CIO, so that at certain location, for that particular location that we've chosen, these vendors who choose to participate would have solutions to so-called share with the CIOs. It could be at the customer reference site in that particular location. It could be their so-called technology center or their solution center or center of excellence for them. Or it could even be a full day presentation by key speakers from the vendor end to share the latest that they have. So we do that on a yearly basis, but because this year you can't do it because
yes, of course,
traveling is a no-no. Also at the same time, physical meetings are no longer happening. So during the MCO, CMCO, even right up to now RMCO period, right, we still work with technology providers to engage with the CIOs and the SGG members via webinars.
Okay. So yes, in fact, PIKOM has been very active. I think you've probably got more than 40 webinars and all that since MCO.
Across the board, and also in collaboration with other associations.
Yes, that's right. Because I kind of, as part of the research for this, I realized you guys have been very prolific in adopting this. You talk about walking the talk. I think PIKOM has walked the talk and adopted the new technology.
So because whether there's COVID or not, the industry and the activity needs to get going. It's just we use a different platform to execute it. So webinar was obviously the most accessible and obviously is the safest for all participants to be on the platform.
Which brings me to the question about the engagement with government, because PIKOM has post-COVID or during the COVID period itself, I think PIKOM came out very strongly on one particular issue.
I think I know what exactly you're talking about. Very strongly, quite a few times. It all started with when the MCO was announced. I think it was a very quick announcement on 16 and then on 18 March, MCO comes into effect, right? And it was also at a time where the government releases information that what industry are essential during MCO. It actually took me by surprise that IT industry is not being listed as essential.
I think for a lot of people it caught us by surprise, because for me IT support is like electricity. It's got to be there 24/7.
I'm glad you share the same thoughts. I just felt that IT infrastructure today is actually the nerve of a lot of organizations. Of course, to those organizations that are fully digitalized, obviously is a big part of their operation. But to even smaller companies where part of their business processes, or at the very least communication, which is already online. So IT support and services is extremely important.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine when you're working from home during MCO and your
server is down.
or server is down, right?
Yes.
And just because you're not an essential service business, I cannot go and troubleshoot for you.
Yeah.
So that's really a bit ridiculous to me. And that's why we highlight it very strongly to the government for a few times.
But what were the reasons why it would seem very logical that the government would say, yes, let's classify this as an essential service, but why didn't they? What were their issues?
I believe there's this traditional classification of business segment within the industry, and they look at key major segments that will contribute to the overall economy health or the economic growth or the GDP of the country. And I IT services is lumped under the manufacturing and overall services
Okay.
broad-based segment. So basically, I believe there's a challenge for them to extract that, because they are looking at all these key classification and decide from there what should be essential and what should be not. But we told them that, look, moving forward, as a country, especially since MCO started, government has been banging a lot in terms of their messaging about digital economy,
Yes.
digitalization, especially for startups, for SMEs, and for organizations who have not adopted that. They are pushing very hard for it until the brand name called Digital Malaysia is also out.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
I remember very well Digital Malaysia naming was something that was very largely brought up during the 5G launch in Langkawi by then Prime Minister Tun Dr. Mahathir, because I attended that launch.
Okay.
All right. So everywhere in the signage in Langkawi, around the island, is Digital Malaysia, Digital Malaysia, Digital Malaysia. But to achieve that, it's not just the infrastructure. To achieve that, you also need a lot of support for IT support and services, IT products to work together with the infrastructure boys to create the entire solution for people to be able to work from home and for digitalization to happen, whether it's on a small scale or large scale, right? So it's actually pretty disappointing when we hear that. But we have spent a lot of time educating the government. In fact, during those period of time, myself and my CEO, Ken Yu, we have met up with Mosti. I think our first meeting was with Mosti, that was with YBKJ. Then we also met up with KKMM through the support of MDEC, to really explain to them why IT support and services should be essential during this period of time. And during RMCO period, we also had a chance to both have an online conversation with MOF and as well as a physical meeting after that with MOF. And this meeting was again to spur the idea, or to really implant the idea that IT supports and services should be essential, especially critical kind like this. I hope that there's not going to be a second wave or third or fourth where we have to go back to an MCO lockdown situation. Let's hope the COVID situation will improve.
Yes, in fact, we've been very lucky in Malaysia.
Right, exactly. So I do not hope for that to happen. But touch wood, in any case, that a similar situation happen in future, IT support and services should be essential, especially when digitalization and digital economy is on top of the agenda, the first agenda in the countries.
Absolutely.
Taught today, and they're planning for the next 5 years and 10 years.
As an industry body, and I'm going to pick up on what you said about MOF and your engagement with MOF. As an industry body, your role is to be a voice for the industry,
Yes.
to also lobby the government. What have you put up any position papers or key budget papers and so forth on behalf of the industry post-COVID?
Yes, we did. I think during the same meeting, during the IMCO period with MOF, was that one of the key, besides talking about IT being essential during the digital economy planning, we also spoke about budget 2021 from the industry standpoint. Now, over the months and over the years, right, we being the voice of industry, we also we definitely have to hear and listen to what our members' inputs are. And there's some pain points that they are actually experiencing over the past few years. During the meeting with MOF, we spoke about digital tax. We spoke about withholding tax on softwares, especially software from abroad. We also spoke about talent retention. Okay, and on top of that, we also spoke about if digital economy and the implementation of IT products is key in building digital economy and digitalization initiative, why can't we go back to an era where IT products wasn't imposed sales tax? There was a period of time where no sales tax was imposed on ICT products. But after GST, when sales and services tax came back into play, IT products, mainly hardware, there was an levy of sales tax on it, which is mostly at 10%.
Yeah.
Some I understand 5%, but that's very minimal. Now you're trying to encourage adoption by companies, large or small, into digitalization on usage of ICT products. Then obviously government has to look at certain incentive or certain way to promote this to ensure the adoption rate is there.
I think one of the challenges for all those taxes that you're lobbying against is the fact that government needs new sources of revenue right now. And I think that's where they look at the digital economy. On one hand, they're trying to promote it.
Yep.
On the other hand, they say, hey, hang on here, this is largely untaxed. We need to get a piece of the pie.
Well, that is true, but I may not totally 100% agree with that. I believe it's a balancing on both sides. One is government at the same time is trying to find source of revenue. On the other hand, you also hear that government is also creating budgets to promote digitalization, right?
And let me talk about that in a little bit. Where do you think, and I want to zoom in on that specifically. So we talked about where the government perhaps has been less than supportive. Which other areas do you think they have been very supportive to the industry?
Of course, from a economic growth standpoint, the importance of digital economy is something that the government actually did recognize moving forward. And obviously the COVID-19 situation accelerated a lot of the initiative. Now I personally has been invited, of course is as a chairman of PIKOM, I was invited into as a committee member of the National Science Council. National Science Council committee was actually has been there for some time, and I was appointed in by then Prime Minister Dr. Mahathir, and currently our new PM, that would be Tan Sri Muhyiddin, right? Tan Sri Muhyiddin actually follow up with this committee meeting, and we had the second committee meeting actually about 2 months ago. All right, so you can see that obviously I cannot share with you details of discussion during this meeting.
But you can talk about it in broad terms.
Yeah, in broad terms, that's right. So you can see that the committee is working towards areas where it can stimulate the economy digitally moving forward. I'll just give you an example. They actually have developed about 10 areas of technology that can feel that they believe that they can support 10 segments of businesses moving forward. And trust me, these 10 areas of technologies are very IT based, very communication, very IT based. I'm sure you would have guessed some of them are like your 5G.
Yeah, your IoT,
your IoT,
Industry 4.0, AI, yeah.
You know, you guessed it, I didn't say it, right? Okay, and obviously you would address some key segments of the economy. So basically it's all about promoting science, technology, innovation to stimulate the economy.
And I'd like to add to that, I think one of the things that they've don't get enough credit for, but I think it is money on the ground, is the stuff that they've done with the SME grant, the 5,000 ringgit digitalization grant for SMEs. I think that seems to be getting on the ground because it's small amounts of money and it's SME. The other thing is also, which is related to employment, but it actually has a huge reskilling and retooling strategy, is the HRDF, the money that's flowing through HRDF and all of those Penjana scheme and all those various schemes, place and train and so forth. That puts money in individuals' hands and also helps SMEs, in fact, in terms of employment, because it subsidizes the wages of the people that you take as part of this training scheme. So it's cheap labor as such. I mean, I put it in inverted quotes, air quotes, but you actually get to grow companies literally because you have this talent available.
I want to do a big step of track back.
Okay.
During one of the discussion point with MOF, the minister Deputy Minister asked, Danny, why do you think that the adoption rate of digitalization in SMEs are not happening as fast, right? My input to him was actually pretty simple, is that during COVID or MCO period or CMCO or RMCO, right, a lot of these businesses doesn't know whether they'll survive beyond the next 6 months to 12 months. Are you expecting them to put in time to look at digitalization now? Because a lot of them may not even want to look at it, because a lot of their focus is in terms of survival.
Absolutely.
Right? Survival. And even with those grants, at this present moment, if you ask me, it may not be enough for certain organizations. But of course, the grant allow you to work on different digitalization processes within the same company. You can do that. You can apply it that way. But I was also told those grants. I don't know whether I should say this, but there were a lot of criteria that you have to meet.
Yes.
In order for those grants to be approved. So it's quite challenging for some of these SMEs to meet those criteria.
So I'll give you an example, because I did research before this. Some of those training grants, for example, you can enjoy that for 6 months. So you get a subsidy for 600 ringgit or 800 ringgit or so forth, with the understanding that you will hire them for the subsequent 12 months. Now, many companies were afraid to commit to that, because as you correctly pointed out, will I be around at that time?
Yes.
And what are the obligations that are associated with that? Now, let me give you the government's perspective on that. And you and I are old enough to know that in past schemes like this, there's a lot of abuse. So people use them as cheap labor. The moment the 6 months is over, they're gone. They get the next lot of cheap labor to come in. So this is where the government tried to put their thinking caps on and say, okay, we want to upskill people. So the 6 months is really okay. I give you cheap labor and so forth. I help to do training for them as well. But then after that, I've upskilled these persons. You need to hire them. So the thinking behind it was that. I mean, they wanted to prevent abuse. So I think to be balanced, we got to look at it from the start of the government. I tend to agree with that. But what they did subsequent to that is they relaxed the conditions of the scheme. You could go and apply and say, hey, for example, if this person is not a performer, you can let that person go. If this person, but it's got to be properly documented. I think the checks and balances, sometimes all of us want everything from the government. We open our mouth and we want stuff from the government. The reality is we also have to invest. And I think that's, from a fairness standpoint to the government, the government's intention was there in the right place. Two objectives. One is employment. One is to also help people grow their business. And the third thing, of course, actually is the third one, putting money on the ground. Saving money for the SMEs, putting money in the hands of people who've lost their jobs. So I think we've got to be a bit balanced in terms of that.
I agree with you. The thing is that's why in the past there were this initiative from HRDF is talking about train and place.
Yes.
Right. So now it's the reverse. It's called place and train.
Correct.
To ensure that there's actually a employment.
Correct.
Happen.
Yeah.
Then only we'll provide training to the employee that you have just employed. And agree. I think we should relax some of the conditions so that the employers will have no qualms in hiring, and then get supported from HRDF in terms of the training of the new employee, or even retrench. The whole idea is try to promote a job market for not just retrenched workers, but also fresh graduates as well.
Yes.
Right. Which is why one of the things that we discussed with MOF was how to retain talent. Today, I believe that we all know that our neighboring countries are paying far better in terms of
course,
entry pay,
and also attracting a lot of large companies like ByteDance and now Tencent to invest in their countries, despite the fact that they are expensive.
Yeah, that's right. And you know that ByteDance already spoken about setting up their Asia regional headquarters in Singapore.
Yes, and Tencent as well just announced that.
So that will further attract our local talent overseas. whether it's be it Singapore or elsewhere. So we need to look at an area, how do we retain the talent. So we even spoke about income tax, reduce the income tax levied on fresh graduates coming into the industry. It's not just in IT, even in the E&E sector as well. So we are getting a lot of good brains, creative people leaving the country because they can make extra on a monthly basis or an annual basis. So I think government need to look at how to retain talent.
How have they been responsive? Because that's quite a radical idea to say that fresh graduates, I'm going to give you a reduced tax. How has MOF responded to that?
So far, we have not heard anything yet because it's part of their budgeting for 2021.
Okay.
So we hope that they will listen to this feedback because I'm very sure that IT industry is not the only industry facing the lack of talent. E&E also definitely face that. Reason because in the National Science Council meeting, there were presentation from E&E segment, and they're screaming about losing talents. All right. Obviously, back to where you're saying that government is also losing income revenue, some of these incentives are being put in place for a fresh grad in this segment. But contention is very simple. If you're a fresh grad coming in for the first 3 years, we also don't see a lot of tax deduction.
Correct, you're not going to be paying
total,
a lot.
It's not going to be big. But to that particular individual, it makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely, because it's take-home pay.
Talent, exactly. So this is what we are banging on. We are working on with the government. And back to SME in terms of survivability, right? In fact, we also shared with MOF that look, during the Bencana or the initial phase of support given by government during the MCO, we felt that a lot of this support should have given to companies outright and not to individuals. The reason is very simple, because if you were to
But there were political reasons for that.
Well, it's not up to me to say it is true or not, but a lot of people assume that that's how the thing went. But being an association, as a voice of industry, especially also in concern of the well-being of the industry and our members, right? So our feedback to MOF is that the support was just given to organization, so the organization would not have to look at working with the staff on voluntary unpaid leave, pay cut, or even retrenchment. All right. So when employees don't have to go through that, moratorium don't even have to exist in the first place, because they can afford to pay their installment like pre-COVID, right?
But I think that's a tricky situation.
Organization also can do that.
The tricky thing about that is the following: we didn't have the luxury. So if you look globally, countries like Singapore had the luxury of huge reserves in order to fund this sort of schemes. And even in Singapore, that's all coming to an end now as well. They have to look at new stimulus, new sort of situation. The other thing is, of course, the moratorium to a large extent helps the banking sector as well, because we will have too much of stresses on the banking sector, especially the first few months. Absolutely. So I think that's a separate discussion, a separate interview itself.
That's right.
But Danny, what's next for PIKOM moving forward? What are the areas that you all are looking at, as part of your tenure, for the remainder of your term?
There are a few other initiatives we are looking at, which we have mooted the idea this year within our strategic meeting. One of it is we set up a committee to address how can we play a stronger voice of the industry. This is where we hope that we can work with government in terms of setting policies, setting initiative that is correct for the industry, especially in line with digital economy. This is where we have a committee set up called the Think Tank Committee.
That's your future digital initiative.
Yeah, future digital initiative, that you're correct. That's one. The other one is that we felt that from gender standpoint, we need to seek a balance, and we also need to look at ways how we can grow the female gender in our industry, which is why we are in the midst of setting up an Women in Tech chapter within PIKOM, right? And obviously that chapter will be headed by a lady.
Yes, yeah, it better be.
Better be. I have male counselors and advisors asking me whether they can join the committee. So my answer is no. Yeah. So basically, we're definitely made up of a majority of female committee members that are active in the industry. So which is why I felt that this is extremely important because we now know that there are a lot of female are also very much coming back into the workforce, right? Whether they are IT or not, right? The reason why they are related because those that are coming back in the workforce, if they work from home or they're trying to sell something, sell their product that they develop from home, so they normally sell it online.
Yes.
So it's part of IT infrastructure. So that's definitely something very important that we felt that a chapter to drive, to grow the gender, to create a so-called bigger development contribution from the female gender, and then as a whole to even look forward beside this new committee and this new chapter, our development on our existing chapter, which I mentioned just now, outsourcing Malaysia, in short we call it OM, the CIOs, venture investment chapter, e-commerce, as well as cybersecurity. So these are areas that we're working to develop further to help to provide value to members and help members to create value to the market.
And also you were successful PIKOM as a team to bring in the World Congress for IT.
Oh yes, WCIT in short, right? So initially there was this huge plan. In fact, back in 2016, it was awarded to Malaysia. We had the WCIT in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, back in 2008. It was a successful event, and WITSA, which is the World IT Services Alliances body, decided to award us again for 2020, which is supposed to be this year. And obviously we were planning towards that, and suddenly COVID-19 hits, and we were the first couple of months during MCO, we were still deliberating whether we should continue to have this event, which was actually scheduled to be in September this year, which is this month.
This month, yeah.
Which is this month, which is sometime around this week, all right? But after much deliberation within the PIKOM team, as well as with WITSA organization, we felt that 2020 would still be a risk to have a large physical event, right? And true to it that until today we are still under the RMCO period. Yep. We cannot have a large-scale event. Our borders are still closed mainly for 23 countries as we know it. So which is why we couldn't have the physical event this year. And we decided that agreeing with WITSA is to have this to be held in 2022. Now you may ask me why not 2021, right?
Yeah.
Two main reasons. One is that 2021 was awarded to Bangladesh as a country. Of course, by force majeure situation, you can ask Bangladesh to push it to 2022. But it was 2021 WCIT in Bangladesh is important to their country because it is their 50th independence anniversary. So they insisted that they should host it next year. And it don't make sense to have two WCI world event in the same year.
Yeah.
Even if we were to host it, there was ideas or there was suggestion that maybe we do it in the first quarter in 2021, which I certainly felt that it would still be a risk in terms of the COVID-19 situation. And that's when we decided 2022 would be the safest bet to host a worldwide physical event. So while we decided to postpone it, we told ourselves that look, we can still have a small scale event, and that is working to promote towards WCIT 2022. So we decided to still have a small scale event in Penang. Obviously, WCIT 2020 originally was planned to be in Penang.
So what people call, after all, the Silicon Valley of Malaysia. Penang.
Okay, but you know what? Some people may ask why we chose Penang, right?
But you know, the reality with a lot of people is just they don't realize that out of Malaysia, a lot of people literally use that term. My friends in the US, oh yeah, Penang, the Silicon Valley of Malaysia, Intel, Motorola, all there. So I think that branding is something that Penang should use a little bit more.
Yes, but I believe that they are working on something bigger. So reason why we are working with Penang is because they plan to have the Penang State as a smart city by year 20 or smart island by the year 2030.
Okay.
All right. So they already have thoughts and plans in mind how to move toward that. So we felt that WCIT is a perfect platform for them to kickstart this initiative towards their 10 years goal of achieving a smart city or smart island status by then. But quite unfortunately, because of COVID-19, we have to postpone that. But we're still having it in Penang in 2022. But beside Road to WCIT as a prelude towards that, we actually initially has planned a major satellite event in conjunction of WCIT 2020 in Penang.
Okay.
We're going to call it TechFest Penang, is where we are going to showcase 8 to 9 what you call technology, innovation in technology, especially sitting on 5G.
Okay.
All right. I'll give an example like drones, deployment of drones. We're talking about food technology. We're also talking about testing autonomous car or autonomously driven car in Penang in certain areas. So most of these application would not be residing in a convention center. It will actually be hosted and displayed in the public area, and mainly will be at the heritage site of Penang.
Okay,
all right.
Excellent.
So we encourage the public and the consumer to experience it. I think that's extremely important.
Yeah.
So that there's this adoption of this technology ASAP once they experience it.
Yeah.
You know, Malaysians, or to most people, seeing is believing. So
Yes.
if they experience it, they see it, they feel comfortable, right? So when all this technology are ready and matured to be deployed, so that's when the adoption rate will kick in. So we will still have this TechFest event in Penang. Instead of this month, it will be held in November from 18th to 20th. You may ask me, is it going to be a physical event? Yes, but also it's going to be hybrid. We are limiting the number of physical presence because of the SOP guideline. But at the same time, we are also allowing consumer worldwide or access from worldwide in terms of the online access, as well as for some of the key deliverables and key events, we are actually broadcasting live through Astro. Okay, so it's going to what we call a hybrid event. Now, you may heard about PIKOM Digital Summit, right?
Yes.
So PIKOM Digital Summit is part of the agenda of this whole 3 days TechFest event. So PIKOM under our 2 chapter is driving that with one key PIKOM event, which is our yearly PIKOM Leadership Summit, right? Then under our outsourcing chapter, we have our Smart Sourcing Summit, and under cybersecurity chapter is driving the future of cybersecurity event. So, and we are combining all these 3 events into a single day show, all right? There can be a mixture of physical presentation, maybe a short portion on online broadcast, and the rest are in terms of online. We are even setting up B2B, online B2B platform. So partners, sponsors can even do business matching online with somebody from not just in Malaysia, but from all other parts of the world. So this is the first time we are doing this. You know, everything look on track. We have the right mechanism in place, the right ideas, and the execution work in progress is very much on track. Even though now we only have 2 months ago, we felt that we can make this a very successful event. And you never know, this is probably the concept moving forward in having large-scale event in future.
I think so. I think so,
Yes,
because
that's
obviously doing stuff online has its advantages. You also get a wider audience, and then yes, you have the experiential part of online. For people like us who are older, there's nothing like the physical
We are not
networking.
That old. We are not that old. This is not the first time you said the older guys like us.
But the younger folks, I mean, 20-year-olds, 20-plus-year-olds, the digital world they're perfectly comfortable to just do that without shaking hands and so forth.
Yes.
So that's why the hybrid effect, I think the hybrid sort of event will work very, very well moving forward.
Yeah. When we first came up with this idea, we had a hard time trying to convince some elderly people. So they kept thinking it's online webinar, it's like online video call and webinar. So no, we are not. We are beyond that, right?
Yeah.
And we have seen a couple of successful world events that was conducted in this manner, right?
Oh really? Which ones have?
Collision.
Okay.
Collision from home. Their team for this year's Collision from home. But actually, there's on a yearly basis, it's a worldwide large-scale physical events that is promoting startups, new technologies, and stuff like that from all over the world. And this time now they did it from online. All right. So all of us actually log in from office or from home to listen in, and they did it very smoothly. The platform was smooth. The platform and what you call what's the word for it? The connection of new agendas, new speaker was very seamless.
Okay.
So to me, it's a very successful event. And good thing also is that now that things are online, you can do recording. If you miss certain keywords or certain thoughts of the speakers or panelists, you can always record them and then do a playback.
Yeah, and you can also share that within your organization itself.
Exactly.
The key learnings. I think that then the learning opportunities are accelerated.
Yeah, but bear in mind, humans are being humans. We still need this physical touch and physical. Of course, maybe not touch. Physical touch as in literally physical touch and physical interaction. So, I mean, from the webinars that we organize, we also see numbers of participation starts to drop. As when during RMCO people are allowed to do physical meetup and stuff like that.
Yes.
But moving forward, I will not see that as a dying trend. I think it will still be a trend on online meetings, webinars, and it's a coexistence of the two way of communication or different ways of communication. Just like in business, you have a storefront, you have salespeople selling, but at the same time you have your e-commerce channel.
Of course.
To try to reach out.
So it's an omni-channel approach.
It's an omni-channel approach, that's right. So these are some of the things that we are working on looking forward, and we hope TechFest and Road to WCIT will move us, give us the right platform, not just for Penang, but also moving forward for our 2022 event, and also drive potential investment into the country. All right. Obviously, when we are planning for WCIT 2020, we were hoping certain numbers of investment will come in after the event, which happened in 2008 when we held our first WCIT in KL. So we thought we would be able to drive more investment in the country. But now, with the thing postponed, we just have to hold back our thoughts and our target for 2022. But definitely, the key idea is to attract foreign investment. And we are using this WCIT to also sound to the region and sound to the world that the gateway to Southeast Asia is Malaysia. I think that's extremely important. Geographically, we are at a superb place, and we are not affected by natural disasters. Yeah. We are not affected. Natural disasters one thing, but obviously you have to have to put aside COVID-19.
Yes.
Where every country is affected. So that's one area they're working on. And hopefully with that, as an association working with stakeholders, whether they are local, regional or globally, to drive and bring up the economy of the country. On the other thing, I think back to what we mentioned just now, the other thing that will always be in my mind, and also the association vision, is to continue to work on making IT services or support and services as an essential services in our country. You know, let's hope again that there's no second MCO situation that happen. You know, but like you and I agree, in the new digital economy world, IT infrastructure and IT support and service are really key to ensure that the heart beating rate, beating of the heart of every organization which is represented by IT literally is continue to run and continue to survive during difficult period. Whether or not there's COVID or not, today is the nerve of a lot of organizations. That's all I believe here.
Danny, thank you very much for your insights. I'm Brian Fernandez for BizTech Conversations. Please check us out. We've just been speaking to Danny Lee, and Danny is the chairman of PIKOM, the Tech Association of Malaysia. Check out our business and technology conversations on biztech.asia.